The first sign something was wrong came at 1437 Greenwich Mean Time. A low electric hum began to pulse through the underground research facility beneath the Nevada desert. Dr. Emily Carter watched the quantum resonance monitors with a mixture of anticipation and calculated calm. Her fingers, calloused from years of intricate work, hovered just above the holographic control panel. Outside the facility, the world was about to change forever. In Times Square, massive digital billboards flickered like dying fireflies. Advertisements for the latest smartphone, a Broadway show, and a global energy drink dissolved into static, then pure darkness. Tourists and locals alike looked up in confusion, their smartphone screens simultaneously going black. The iconic New York intersection, usually a cacophony of light and sound, fell into an unnatural silence. Across the Pacific, Tokyo's neon landscape experienced the same phenomenon. The massive screens of Shibuya Crossing went dark, leaving bewildered pedestrians standing in a suddenly monochrome world. Digital clocks in train stations stopped. Traffic lights went black. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire technological infrastructure of human civilization had simply ceased to exist. In the underground facility, Emily watched a global map begin to populate with data points. Red indicators spread like a viral infection, marking each communication network's collapse. Military installations, satellite networks, power grids, everything was going offline with mathematical precision. Initiation sequence confirmed, she muttered to herself, watching a series of quantum entanglement markers dance across her display. Her team, a carefully selected group of the world's most brilliant scientists and engineers, moved with practiced efficiency. No one spoke. No one needed to. They had rehearsed this moment countless times, though most of the world believed their work was nothing more than theoretical research. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, a quantum physicist specializing in electromagnetic shielding, approached Emily's station. His Argentine heritage was evident in the intensity of his dark eyes, currently fixed on the rapidly changing data streams. Cascading shutdown is proceeding exactly as modeled, he reported, his voice steady. No deviation from projected parameters. Emily nodded. The global blackout was more than just a technological failure. It was the first stage of humanity's most ambitious defensive strategy. Years of secret development, billions in covert funding, and the combined intellectual power of scientific teams across multiple continents had led to this moment. In Moscow, military command centers went silent. Backup generators failed to engage. Communication networks collapsed with frightening simultaneity. The Russian military's most advanced early warning systems became nothing more than expensive paperweights. Similar scenes played out across the globe. Beijing, New Delhi, London, Berlin, Sao Paulo. Each major technological hub experienced the same instantaneous shutdown. To the outside world, it would appear that Earth had simply gone dark. But darkness, in this case, was entirely by design. Emily's fingers danced across the control panel, activating the next phase of their elaborate plan. Quantum shielding protocols began to engage, creating an invisible barrier that would render Earth undetectable to external scanning technologies. It was more than a simple communications blackout. It was a planetary invisibility cloak, developed through technologies that would seem like pure science fiction to most of humanity. Shield stability at 92% and rising, Marcus announced, a hint of pride breaking through his professional demeanor. The facility hummed with energy. Banks of quantum computers, each more powerful than entire data centers from just a decade ago, processed information at speeds that would have been impossible just a few years earlier. They were not just blocking communications, they were analyzing, preparing, and waiting. Outside the facility, the Nevada desert remained unchanged. A lone coyote wandered past a hidden ventilation shaft, completely unaware of the global transformation taking place. Tumbleweeds rolled across the barren landscape, a picture of mundane normalcy that belied the extraordinary events unfolding beneath the surface. Emily allowed herself a momentary smile. The first stage was complete. Humanity had just taken its most significant step toward protecting itself from a threat most of the world didn't even know existed. The day the Earth went dark had begun. The Stellar Confederation's central chamber rose like a crystalline cathedral, suspended in the void of deep space. Massive windows revealed a panorama of stars, their light seeming to pulse with an almost sentient rhythm. Inside, representatives from 17 different sapient species gathered, their collective anxiety thick enough to cut with a molecular blade. Ambassador Zaxtel of the Creon Empire shifted uncomfortably. His tentacular appendages, normally a deep azure, had faded to a pale, almost translucent blue, a clear sign of his growing unease. The holographic display at the center of the chamber flickered with the last known data about the small blue planet called Earth. "Another primitive species has fallen," drawled Krelnax, the reptilian representative from the Vor hegemony. His forked tongue flicked between scaled lips, tasting the emotions in the room. "These carbon-based life forms are always so fragile." Young analyst Lyra, a member of the Cyrene consensus race, leaned forward, her multispectral eyes, capable of seeing far beyond the visual spectrum used by most species, caught something the others had missed. The data streams showed anomalies that didn't align with a typical planetary collapse. "Respected Council," she interrupted, her voice a melodic blend of harmonic tones. "The data is unusual." The chamber fell silent. When a junior analyst spoke up during a high council meeting, it was either a grave mistake or a potentially critical observation. Zaxtel's secondary visual organs focused on Lyra. "Explain," he commanded, his translator rendering the complex linguistic clicks into crisp, standard galactic speech. Lyra manipulated the holographic display, pulling apart layers of data like a skilled surgeon dissecting a complex organism. "The energy signatures don't match a planetary extinction event. There's a structured complexity here that suggests intentionality." The Vor hegemony representative scoffed. Intentionality? From a species that was barely managing interplanetary communication. Impossible. But others in the chamber were not so dismissive. The quantum archivists, a species that had long since transcended physical form, began to run their own complex analyses. Their computational networks, spanning multiple dimensions, started to trace the strange energy patterns emanating from the human solar system. Deep in the archives of the Stellar Confederation, historical records about Earth began to circulate. Preliminary first contact reports painted a picture of a young, volatile species, prone to conflict, technologically inconsistent, a civilization that seemed to oscillate between moments of breathtaking creativity and self-destructive tendencies. Yet something about this current scenario didn't fit the expected narrative. In a private communication channel, the quantum archivists shared their preliminary findings with Zaxtel. The data was encrypted in a way that would take most species centuries to decode, but for the ambassador, it was as readable as a child's picture book. "Impossible," he whispered, his tentacles coiling in a gesture of shock. The human planet hadn't been destroyed. It had intentionally gone dark. Lyra continued her presentation, her confidence growing with each revelation. "Look here," she pointed to a series of quantum fluctuations. "These energy patterns suggest a massive, coordinated technological intervention. This is not a collapse. This is a choice." The council chamber erupted in a cacophony of translated languages. Debates, arguments, theories flew back and forth. The Vor hegemony representative demanded immediate reconnaissance. The Cyrene consensus advocated for caution. The quantum archivists remained maddeningly silent, their computational networks working overtime. Zaxtel raised an appendage, silencing the room. "We will dispatch a scout ship," he declared. "We will understand what has happened to this curious species." Little did they know, the humans were already watching. In the vast darkness between star systems, a single scout ship prepared for its journey. Its crew, selected for their expertise in first contact and planetary assessment, had no idea they were about to become part of something far larger than a simple reconnaissance mission. The human planet waited. silent, watching, preparing. The underground facility beneath the Nevada desert stretched far beyond what any satellite or ground-penetrating radar could detect. Miles of interconnected tunnels and chambers hummed with a quiet intensity that belied the massive operation taking place beneath the surface of a seemingly abandoned landscape. Dr. Emily Carter stood before a massive holographic display, her fingers tracing intricate quantum network patterns. Around her, a team of scientists and military personnel from every corner of the globe worked with remarkable synchronization. The room buzzed with a controlled energy, part scientific precision, part barely contained excitement. Major Jack Rodriguez, a Special Forces veteran turned quantum security specialist, approached Emily's station. His Chilean-American heritage was evident in the intensity of his dark eyes and the precise way he moved. "Quantum shield is holding at 94.7% stability," he reported, his voice a low, controlled rumble. "Good," Emily responded, her eyes never leaving the display. "We need to maintain absolute concealment for at least another 72 hours. The facility was more than just a research center. It was humanity's most sophisticated defense mechanism, a global shield created through decades of secret international cooperation. Countries that had once been bitter enemies now worked side by side, united by a singular purpose that transcended political boundaries." A young Chinese network engineer named Lai Wei called out from her station. "Detecting multiple external scanning attempts," she announced, her fingers dancing across a holographic keyboard. "Quantum deflection protocols are operating at peak efficiency." Emily allowed herself a momentary smile. The global blackout was more than just a defensive maneuver. It was a carefully orchestrated message to potential extraterrestrial observers. Humanity was not a weak, fractured species ready to be conquered. They were a unified force capable of extraordinary technological feat. In another section of the facility, Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, no relation to Jack, worked on advanced quantum communication systems. Clusters of computers far beyond current technological understanding processed massive amounts of data. They were not just blocking external scans. They were actively collecting and analyzing information about potential alien technologies. "We're picking up some interesting resonance patterns," Marcus called out, adjusting a series of complex holographic displays. "Whatever is scanning us is using technologies we've never seen before. But our quantum shield is holding perfectly." The facility represented the culmination of a secret global project that had been developing for decades. After a series of classified astronomical discoveries suggested the potential of hostile extraterrestrial contact, the world's top scientific and military minds had come together. Their mission: prepare humanity for a potential first contact scenario that could threaten the entire species. Jack Rodriguez moved between stations, checking security protocols. Military personnel from different nations worked seamlessly together. American Special Forces operators stood shoulder to shoulder with Russian intelligence specialists. Chinese network engineers collaborated with European quantum physicists. "Status report," Emily called out, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos. A chorus of responses came back. "Power systems stable. Quantum shield at maximum efficiency. External scanning attempts deflected. Communication networks isolated but ready." The facility was more than just a defensive installation. It was a testament to human potential, a living, breathing organism of collective intelligence and preparedness. Years of secret development, billions in covert funding, and the combined intellectual power of scientific teams across multiple continents had led to this moment. Lai Wei suddenly went very still. "Multiple high-energy scanning attempts detected," she announced, her voice tight with concentration. "They're getting more aggressive." Emily stepped closer to the display. "Maintain deflection protocols," she commanded. "Let them try." The alien scanners would find nothing. No indication of human activity. No suggestion of the massive technological infrastructure hidden beneath the Earth's surface. To any external observer, the planet would appear completely dark and potentially dead. But darkness, in this case, was entirely by design. Jack Rodriguez caught Emily's eye, and gave a slight nod. They both understood what was at stake. This was more than a defensive maneuver. This was humanity's first true test on the galactic stage. And they were ready. The conference room was buried 300 meters beneath the Swiss Alps, a location chosen for its geological stability and near absolute isolation. 12 people sat around a circular table, each representing a different nation, discipline, and perspective. The year was 2031, and the world had no idea how close it was to a potential existential threat. Dr. Emily Carter stood at the head of the table, her presentation hologram flickering to life. The image showed a series of astronomical anomalies, strange energy signatures, unexplained gravitational distortions, and communication patterns that defied current scientific understanding. "These are not random occurrences," she began, her voice steady and controlled. "We're looking at systematic reconnaissance." Dr. Hassan Khalid, a senior astrophysicist from the United Arab Emirates, leaned forward. "Reconnaissance by whom?" he asked, though the room knew the unspoken answer. The hologram shifted, showing a complex map of potential extraterrestrial approach vectors. Red lines traced potential paths through nearby star systems, highlighting areas of increased quantum fluctuation and unexplained energy signatures. General Sarah Mitchell, representing the United States Strategic Command, spoke next. "We've been tracking these anomalies for the past 7 years," she said. "Our initial models suggested a potential first contact scenario within the next 2 decades, but recent data indicates we might be running out of time." The room fell silent. Each person understood the gravity of the situation. This was not a theoretical discussion about potential alien life. This was a strategic planning session for humanity's survival. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez pulled up a series of technical schematics. "We've developed a multi-layered defense strategy," he explained. "Traditional military approaches would be useless. We're talking about a technological threat that could potentially neutralize our entire communication and defense infrastructure in minutes." The plan was audacious. Create a global quantum shield that could not just defend against external scanning and potential attack, but completely mask human technological existence. It would require unprecedented levels of international cooperation, technological innovation, and absolute secrecy. Emily clicked to the next slide. "We'll need to develop a planetary communication and technology shutdown protocol that can be implemented within seconds. Complete blackout. Total invisibility." The financial requirements were staggering. Trillions of dollars would be redirected from military budgets, space programs, and technological research. Countries that had been traditional enemies would need to work together, pooling resources and sharing the most classified technological developments. General Mitchell outlined the political challenges. "We'll need to create a completely new form of international governance," she explained. "A unified command structure that can operate independently of existing political boundaries." Dr. Khalid raised a critical point. "How do we fund this? How do we keep this secret?" The answer came from an unexpected source. A quiet representative from the Chinese Technological Development Council spoke up. "We redistribute black budget funding," he said. "Defense research, experimental technology programs. We've been preparing for something like this for years." Over the next hours, they mapped out a strategy that seemed impossible. A global quantum communication network. Advanced scanning technologies that could detect potential extraterrestrial approaches years in advance. A planetary defense system that could render humanity invisible if necessary. Emily's final slide showed a simple message: prepare, adapt, survive. As the meeting concluded, each participant understood the weight of their responsibility. They were no longer representatives of individual nations. They were architects of humanity's potential survival. Years of secret development would follow. Quantum computing centers built deep underground. Advanced communication networks developed under the guise of civilian technological research. Military personnel from different nations trained together in absolute secrecy. No one outside this room would ever know how close humanity came to being completely unprepared. The countdown to potential first contact had begun, and humanity would not be caught off guard. The scout ship Horizon Breaker cut through the inky blackness of space with a precision that spoke to centuries of advanced engineering. Captain Eric, a seasoned veteran of the Stellar Confederation's Exploration Division, studied the holographic displays with increasing confusion. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, his four-fingered hand hovering over the navigational controls. Commander Lyra, the young Cyrene analyst who had first noticed the anomalies, stood beside him. Her multispectral eyes worked overtime, scanning through layers of data that would be invisible to most species. The human solar system should have been a beacon of technological activity. Instead, it was a void. "All scanning protocols have been deployed," reported Senior Technician Vex, their primary sensor specialist. His crystalline exoskeleton shifted colors with each burst of computational energy. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Normally, an approaching ship would detect multiple layers of technological signatures, satellite networks, communication grids, electromagnetic emissions, the background noise of a developing civilization. But Earth presented something entirely different. A complete absence of any detectable signal. Captain Eric pulled up the historical records about humanity. The files were frustratingly incomplete. A young species, technologically inconsistent, prone to internal conflicts. The last official report suggested they were barely managing interplanetary communication. "Run the scans again," Eric commanded. Lyra's fingers danced across the holographic interface. Each scan returned the same result. No technological signatures. No communication networks. No evidence of industrial activity. It was as if the entire planet had simply ceased to exist. "This is impossible," Vex muttered, his crystalline form flickering with computational stress. The Horizon Breaker began a careful approach to the solar system. Standard first contact protocols dictated a cautious methodology. Passive scanning. Minimal energy emissions. Absolute non-interference. But something was wrong. "I'm detecting quantum interference," Lyra announced. Her voice carried a note of professional excitement that belied the bizarre nature of their discovery. "The scanning beams are being redirected." Captain Eric leaned closer to the display. Quantum redirection was an advanced technological concept, far beyond the capabilities of a species like humans were supposed to possess. Yet the data was unmistakable. Their most sophisticated scanning technologies were being systematically bent around the planet, rendering it effectively invisible. "It's like the planet is wearing an invisibility cloak," Vex said, his terminology a direct translation from his native language. The ship's artificial intelligence began running complex analysis protocols. Each attempt to scan the planet returned increasingly strange results. Energy signatures that seemed to shift and change. Quantum states that defied standard mathematical models. Lyra pulled up a comparative analysis of previous first contact missions. "This is entirely unprecedented," she reported. "We've never encountered a planetary defense mechanism like this." Captain Eric's experience told him something fundamental had changed. This was not a destroyed planet. This was not a civilization that had failed. This was something else entirely. "Prepare a detailed report for the Stellar Confederation," he commanded. "But do not, under any circumstances, approach any closer." The irony was not lost on the crew. Humanity had been considered a species of minimal galactic importance, a young civilization barely managing its own technological development. Yet here they were, presenting a technological puzzle that challenged everything the Stellar Confederation understood about planetary defense. Lyra continued to run her analyses. Each scan revealed more questions than answers. The quantum interference was too precise, too calculated. This was not a random technological event. This was a message. As the Horizon Breaker maintained its position at the edge of the solar system, the crew realized they were no longer the observers. Somehow, inexplicably, they had become the observed. Somewhere on the dark planet below, something was watching them. And it was waiting. Deep within the underground facility, Dr. Emily Carter watched the alien scout ship with a mixture of scientific curiosity and strategic calculation. Quantum algorithms processed every microscopic piece of data, turning the aliens' reconnaissance attempt into an unprecedented intelligence-gathering operation. "Initiate Phase 2, she commanded, her voice cutting through the controlled chaos of the command center. Major Jack Rodriguez moved to a specialized communication console, his fingers hovering over a series of quantum entanglement interfaces. "Quantum probing sequence activated," he reported. "We're beginning to map their technological signatures." The facility hummed with an energy that was both mechanical and almost alive. Hundreds of the world's most brilliant minds worked in perfect synchronization, transforming what appeared to be a planetary blackout into the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering mission in human history. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez called out from his station. "Their scanning technologies are incredibly advanced, but they're predictable." A holographic display showed complex wave patterns being systematically analyzed and decoded. "We're not just blocking their scans, we're learning from them." Lai Wei, the young network engineer, managed a complex array of quantum communication interceptors. "Their technology uses a fascinating quantum encryption method," she muttered, more to herself than to anyone else. "We're basically getting a free masterclass in advanced extraterrestrial communication protocols." The alien scout ship remained unaware that every single one of its attempts to scan the planet was being turned into a comprehensive intelligence brief. Quantum networks developed through decades of secret research were now performing a technological judo move, using the aliens' own technological approach against them. Emily studied the holographic display, watching as layers of alien technological understanding were peeled back. "We're not just defending," she explained to the team. "We're learning, adapting." Major Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about protecting Earth. This was about understanding a potential threat before it could fully understand them. Each quantum probe sent back by the alien ship was being meticulously decoded, analyzed, and integrated into their growing database of extraterrestrial technological capabilities. "They have no idea," Lai Wei said, a rare smile crossing her face. "They think they're the observers, but we're the ones truly observing." The facility represented the pinnacle of human technological cooperation. Scientists and military personnel from every corner of the globe worked with a singular purpose. Countries that had once been bitter enemies now shared a common goal: understanding and preparing for potential extraterrestrial contact. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez pulled up a comparative analysis. "Look at their quantum communication wavelengths," he said, highlighting a series of complex mathematical models. "They're using a multi-dimensional communication protocol that's light years ahead of our previous understanding. But it's also predictable once you understand the fundamental mathematical principles." Emily watched as the quantum shields continued to redirect and analyze the alien scanning attempts. Each probe was like a sophisticated technological probe being sent back to its source, laden with hidden information and complex quantum markers. "Prepare the initial response package," she commanded. The room went silent. This would be humanity's first true communication with an extraterrestrial civilization. Not a desperate plea, not a show of aggression, but a calculated, precisely engineered message that would communicate humanity's true technological capabilities. Major Rodriguez began the delicate process of quantum message encoding. Complex algorithms translated human intentions into a language of mathematical precision that would be unmistakable to any sufficiently advanced civilization. The message was simple yet profound. "We see you. We understand you. And we are not what you expected." Lai Wei's monitoring systems showed the quantum communication package being prepared. Each byte of information was a carefully constructed piece of a larger puzzle, a puzzle that would reshape the aliens' understanding of humanity. "Package ready," Major Rodriguez announced. Emily nodded. The trap was not about destruction. It was about communication, about establishing a new paradigm of interstellar interaction. "Send," she said, and somewhere in the darkness between stars, The first true conversation between humanity and an alien civilization began. The Stellar Confederation's Central Council chamber erupted in chaos. Holographic displays flickered with incomprehensible data streams, each revealing more questions than answers about the mysterious human planet. Ambassador Zaxtel's tentacular appendages coiled tightly, a clear sign of his rising anxiety. "This is impossible," he muttered, his universal translator rendering his complex linguistic clicks into standard galactic speech. Senior analyst Lyra stood at the center of the chamber, her multispectral eyes processing layers of information that would overwhelm most biological processing systems. The data they had received from the scout ship Horizon Breaker was unlike anything in the Confederation's extensive archives. "The quantum communication package we received," Lyra began, her voice cutting through the ambient noise, "is not a simple response. It's a comprehensive technological overview that challenges everything we understand about emerging civilizations." The holographic display shifted, revealing intricate mathematical models that seemed to dance with a living complexity. Each algorithm was a message, each quantum signature a statement of technological capability that defied conventional understanding. Krelnax, the reptilian representative from the Vor hegemony, leaned forward. His forked tongue flicked nervously. "Are you suggesting," he hissed, "that these humans are more advanced than our initial assessments?" Lyra's response was measured. "I'm suggesting that our initial assessments were catastrophically incorrect. The scout ship's data revealed a planetary defense network of such sophisticated complexity that it made the Confederation's most advanced technologies look primitive. Quantum shielding techniques that could redirect entire scanning arrays. Communication protocols that existed in mathematical dimensions previously thought impossible. They didn't just hide," Zaxtel announced to the Council. "They observed. They analyzed. They prepared." Historical records about humanity were quickly being rewritten. The species that had been categorized as technologically inconsistent, prone to internal conflicts, and barely managing interplanetary communication was now revealing itself as something entirely different. Dr. Vex, the Confederation's lead xenotechnological analyst, pulled up comparative technological timelines. "Look at their developmental trajectory," he said, highlighting a series of complex graphs. "They've been preparing for this moment, not just for years, but potentially for decades." The implications were staggering. A species that had been considered a minor footnote in galactic civilization had just demonstrated technological capabilities that put them far beyond emerging civilizations. Lyra continued her presentation. "The communication package is not just a response. It's a comprehensive overview of their technological capabilities. They're telling us exactly what they can do, and what they're capable of preventing." Senior Council member Xandra, a crystalline being whose computational processes spanned multiple dimensional layers, spoke for the first time. "They want us to know," she said, her voice a complex harmonic resonance, "that they are not a threat. But they are also not to be underestimated." The quantum communication had been a masterpiece of technological diplomacy, not an act of aggression, not a plea for understanding, but a precise, calculated demonstration of capability. Zaxtel reviewed the data again. The humans had essentially given the Stellar Confederation a technological lecture. "Here are our capabilities. Here is what we understand. Here is what we can do." "They've changed the entire paradigm of first contact," Krelnax muttered, a rare note of respect in his voice. Lyra's final slide showed a simple mathematical equation, a quantum communication signature that seemed to pulse with an almost living intelligence. It was a message, a warning, and an invitation. "We are here. We are ready. We are not what you expected." The Stellar Confederation would never be the same. Humanity had just introduced itself to the galaxy. And the galaxy was listening. The quantum shield began to dissolve like morning mist, revealing the planet that had been hidden from galactic view. In the underground command center, Dr. Emily Carter watched the holographic displays with a mixture of anticipation and calculated calm. "Initiate global communication sequence," she commanded. Across the planet, hidden communication arrays came online. Satellite networks that had been dormant for weeks suddenly hummed with activity. The first transmissions were not pleas for help or calls for understanding. They were declarations. Major Jack Rodriguez managed the primary communication interface. "Quantum communication channels are stable," he reported. "All global networks synchronized." The first transmission hit every communication frequency in the Stellar Confederation simultaneously. It was not a traditional message, but a comprehensive data package that would redefine humanity's place in the galactic community. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez called out from his station. "Transmission shows multiple layers of quantum encryption. They won't just receive our message. They'll be forced to understand it." Across the galaxy, communication centers went silent as the human transmission began to process. It was more than information. It was a complete technological and cultural overview that demonstrated humanity's true capabilities. The message was clear. Humanity was not a victim. Humanity was not an emerging species to be studied or potentially conquered. Humanity was a force to be reckoned with. In the Stellar Confederation's central chamber, Ambassador Zach Stahl watched in stunned silence as the transmission unfolded. Layer after layer of data revealed a civilization that had been preparing for this moment for decades. Hidden research facilities, advanced quantum technologies, a global cooperation that transcended national boundaries. "They've been watching us," Lyra whispered, her multispectral eyes processing the incoming data. "This entire time, they've been preparing." The transmission included comprehensive details about human technological capabilities, quantum communication networks that could redirect entire scanning arrays, advanced defensive technologies that could render an entire planet invisible, mathematical models that suggested capabilities far beyond what any emerging civilization should possess. But it was more than just a technological display. The message included cultural information, historical context, a precise explanation of humanity's developmental trajectory. It was a comprehensive introduction that left no room for misunderstanding. "We are here," the transmission suggested. "We are ready. And we are not what you expected." Major Rodriguez looked to Emily. "Global networks are fully online," he reported. "We're broadcasting on all frequencies." Emily watched the holographic display, seeing the first true global communication humanity had ever sent to an extraterrestrial civilization. This was not a message of fear. This was not a plea for recognition. This was a declaration. Across the planet, hidden facilities began to come online. Research centers that had operated in absolute secrecy for decades now revealed themselves. Advanced technological development centers, quantum research facilities, global communication networks that had been carefully maintained in absolute secrecy. The Stellar Confederation's communication centers struggled to process the incoming data. It was too comprehensive, too precise. The humans had not just prepared for first contact. They had engineered an entire first contact strategy that turned the traditional paradigm on its head. Lyra's analysis continued to run. "They've essentially given us a complete technological and cultural briefing," she reported to the stunned council. "It's like they're saying, here we are. This is who we are. This is what we can do." The transmission continued, layer after layer of information revealing a civilization that had been systematically preparing for this moment. Global cooperation that transcended traditional boundaries. Technological development that had been carefully hidden from external observation. Ambassador Zach Stahl understood the deeper message. This was not just a communication. This was a statement of galactic intent. Humanity was here. Humanity was ready. And the galaxy would never be the same.